All right. Hey everyone, welcome to session 3 of our AI for Educators book study. We're super excited to have you all again here with us. And we're kind of sad that we only have this week and next week left. But we're really excited about the school year ahead and excited to see what all of you incredible educators do with your year. So, welcome from the Shelby EdTech team. It's always an honor and privilege to collaborate and connect with the amazing educators from across our district. We love learning with you. So thank you again for being here. And just to get started with our purpose, the purpose of this book study has been to start the conversations for our Shelby County Schools educators, teachers, to understand artificial intelligence and how it will impact education. And I think thus far, our conversations have been just that. We don't have the answers, but we are having great conversations that are going to start us in the right direction. And the quote, AI won't change everything, but it will change a lot. And so that's kind of been at the forefront of everyone's mind as we've gotten into all of this. So just to let you know, we did the question and answers at the end of last session. And although we're not going to address those in isolation, we did look over those questions, and those questions will drive our conversations for today and will be embedded in different things that we talk about. So the first thing is we've had a lot of questions about, okay, so we've got this AI, we've got this chat GPT, which is just one of many platforms. A lot of platforms are out there. And so, we have stated that using chat GPT in the classroom as a teacher is perfectly 100% okay. We want you to use that to benefit you and to help it impact your teaching and learning. As far as students are concerned, where we stand as a district right now is that even students 13 and older that in the privacy say they can use it, we do not want accounts created at this time with their shelbyed.org account. Okay. Now, we did put on here Code Breaker. Code Breakers is it's not linked out, but that's okay. We've linked it out on the resource deck for you. But Code Breakers is actually just an educational consulting company. But when they, heard about this big AI explosion, they created a bot. It's called Byte, B-Y-T-E. And this is an AI bot that requires no login. There's no student login required. It's pretty good. Like, we've put in a few things. I'll be transparent. I haven't played with it as much as chat GPT, but it's one that you can just input something and there is no login required. So this is one we wanted to bring to your attention. Although it looks a little elementary, it can give you some good answers and it's a good option. Okay, so wanted to give you an option because what we are going to start with today is what we didn't get to in last session. And that's the 30 ways that AI can support teaching and learning. And so that's what we want to kind of dive into to start today off. This was really what chapter 4 was based around. So if you want to turn in your book to page 45, what we're going to do is a fun little spinner, because we have 30 different ideas that Matt Miller discussed. Some of them were specifically for student learning, but some of them were specifically for teaching and for teacher tools. So what we're going to do is we're just going to spin 1 through 30, and then whichever one it lands on, if somebody wants to share out an idea, maybe that was sparked in your mind from reading that particular idea. Okay, so Matt, if you will spin it for us. Ooh, sound effect and all. It feels like, The Price is Right, Wheel of Fortune. Okay. Ooh. Thank you, Jason. Sound effects and, visual effects. Okay, so number 29, as we all flip ferociously to number 29. Okay, so number 29 is write content for individualized educational plans and IEP with AI. You know what? We're going to go ahead and spin again because we've addressed this in last meeting. So let's spin again. That's a great one. Just remember, don't use any particular details of student name or student attributes that could give a student away. All right, 20. All right, so ask AI for student work feedback. So does anyone want to share an idea, or maybe you have done this in your classroom?
I know the other day when I was working at the tech half day, we found out that CurryPod actually has a really nifty feedback personalized feedback option where, like, if I as a teacher say I want them to write their answer as a complete sentence that's a compound sentence, I put that in, and then as they have answered, it gives them the next slide after the question slide is a feedback slide that just gives only them their feedback about what they should do. Like for mine, it was like, oh, expound on that. And Tracy was next to me doing hers, and it was like, you should write more. Like, you should elaborate more first. And so it gives personal feedback. And then what I liked about it is that it went back to the question again and gave the students an opportunity to rewrite their answer.
Yes, absolutely. And think about, that saves us a lot of time as a teacher, getting some of that feedback, but also having our students use that, kind of like the ask three before me situation that we have a lot of times in a classroom. Well, your AI bot is now one of your ask me's, right? And so providing that student feedback, very good. And that idea is really what the chunk of today is going to be centered around for discussion. So, all right, Matt, go ahead and spin again. Oh, sorry, Sarah, 1 second. Let's see what number we get, and then I will call on you, Sarah. Okay, 14, and we're going to pause right there. Sarah, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as an English teacher, the feedback is a game changer. I try to do peer review a lot in my class, but sometimes it's the blind leading the blind. They're like, this is great. And then you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, no, it's not. So, having that as a step during peer review would be beneficial and will save me a lot of time before students submit their final drafts.
Yes, great point. And I think we all can. I saw lots of heads shaking. Yes, because it's really hard when you have kids in the same grade level and that kind of thing. It's hard for them to give feedback. So at least the kind of feedback we're hoping for. All right, number 14. Let's see. So use AI to apply learning in unforgettable ways.
I think that's super important, just connecting it to, I had heard a speaker who was a former, he was a Broadway actor who became a classroom teacher, and he talked about kind of the power of creating experiences and kind of, if you envision at the end of the day the kids going home and the parents like, what did you learn today? That like your classroom always leads the day as far as what trying to create something that sticks with the kids, something that they remember at the end of the day. And so, the raps, the poems, the haiku, remixing the work, you can do that in a very quick amount of time, and then kind of create those experiences that can, particularly in middle school when every day is a drudge and they're driven by hormones, it's kind of just something different that you can do that kind of sticks out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it made me think whenever you mentioned the songs or the raps. If you get on Magic School AI, I think you're unmuted right now.
Me?
Yeah. Sorry, we were getting so bad echo. Sorry about that. So whenever you get on Magic School AI, which is a resource on the resource deck that we will share with you guys, you can actually, speaking about songs, we played around with this, Whitney, the other day. So you can get on there. You can pick a song that you like a Taylor Swift song. We did Journey, Don't Stop Believing, and we put in Tracy's name. And it literally took the song, put Tracy's name in there and stuff about technology, because we had put in what do you want the song to be about? It was hilarious. We had so much fun. And so, Jason, back to that thing about creating unforgettable experiences, being able to personalize, that's just a culture building thing too, not necessarily even connected to instruction, but the culture is really what makes that learning experience unforgettable for kids. So what does it feel like in your classroom? And so using AI to do something fun like that is also a nice touch. So thank you for sharing, Jason. Any other thoughts on providing the unforgettable experience? All right, we'll spin one more time. Of course you did, Jason. I love it. An NSYNC song. All right. Number 24. So use AI to summarize text. Oh my goodness. This is a great tool for the elementary kiddos who we still have to tell every detail of the story because it's just all important. And so summarizing becomes a very difficult skill in our lower grades. So let's hear from you guys. How do you envision this particular skill being impacted by AI? Use AI to create or to summarize a text.
I think it'll be helpful for students who have trouble summarizing texts. It'll give them a jumping off point or somewhere to start.
Absolutely. Yes.
I could see where I could use it with my ESL students so that they can engage in class. They may not be able to read 3 chapters, but I could summarize it for them and, review it before they go to class.
Absolutely. Yes. And honestly, like when we think about particular skills like that become really difficult for students, what is it that we're really wanting those kids to do? We're wanting to move them past where they currently are. If we know that it is a skill that they are just not quite able to master yet, then let's think about how this could be a scaffold for them. Let's take away the skill of them having to summarize and let's see if we can build other skills, right? Now the text is summarized for you. Tell me some main ideas or some ideas from the text that support that or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, absolutely. Like we want to move them past where they are. They might not be at that skill yet, but if we give them that, imagine what they could accomplish. So thank you for sharing. Great idea. All right. Any other shares? Any other one we didn't? We're not going to spin again, but was there one that just really spoke to you in that chapter 4 that you just are dying to share about? Because we want you to. Y'all all have wonderful ideas. So anybody? All right. And Rachel said she liked the idea of creating a song and then using that text to a TikTok template on Flip. Yeah. So love it. Meshing all of our tools in a creative way that is purposeful. Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, very good. Well, that's going to kind of sum up our discussion as far as ways AI can support teaching and learning. The sky's the limit. If it wasn't in this book, but it was a wonderful idea you had, run with it. So awesome. All right, Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So we're kind of flipping things around a little bit today. Instead of going in order by chapter, we're going to do chapter 6 first, and then focus most of our discussion today. We'll get into some breakout rooms a little bit later on, specifically on chapter 5, because that's where we felt a lot of really good conversation could potentially take place around plagiarism and cheating. So that's kind of what the second half of our time together is going to look like. So we wanted to just kind of spend a little time talking through some of what chapter 6 offered about how we can be responsible with AI and how we can teach our kids too. So what does that look like? So we're going to go through just a couple of the headings that were listed out in chapter 6. So first and foremost, the heading that says any AI is only as good as its data set, and there will be biases, gaps, and inaccuracies. So if you think about what's included in a data set, AI, artificial intelligence, runs off of large language models, and those consist of billions of different parameters that are fed in from the internet and from humans who write algorithms for machine learning engines to pull information from. Okay, so just to give you an idea, ChatGPT, well, let me back up a little bit. Lambda, which Google Bard is Google's version of artificial intelligence, similar to ChatGPT. Lambda is the large language model that Bard pulls from. It has 137 billion parameters. Billion. That's, mind-blowing how big that is. Okay. ChatGPT 3, the third generation of ChatGPT, has 175 billion. Okay. So a little more than 40 billion more parameters. So they haven't released the information here for ChatGPT 4, the 4th generation, which is the paid version, but researchers are estimating that it has 1.76 trillion parameters, 1,000 times more parameters than the last iteration. Okay, so you think about all of the information that is a part of that. You think about where all of that information comes from and the people who wrote the algorithms to pull the information into this data set. Okay, so the internet itself is 100% accurate, right? Everything that we read on the internet is accurate and factual and true, right? No, not at all, not in any sense. Okay, so we've got to think about how the information that these data sets incorporate could be biased. Not only are the humans who write the algorithms biased in how they write algorithms, whether it's intentional biases or unintentional, humans have biases. It's just natural, okay? But the algorithms that are written pull information from the internet, and the internet itself has biases, extreme biases. And so the information that is pulled within these data sets can be very, very biased. And so we have to be responsible as educators leading our students to teach them how to find factual information, how to pull out and decode and decipher information that could be inaccurate, that could be credible. Okay, so that's part of one of our DLCS standards of decomposing, of abstraction, pulling out the information that's important, that is factual and true. So all of those things pull into the gaps and the inaccuracies that artificial intelligence has within it. Okay, and it's a really, really big conversation that has to happen about what to do with the information that's inaccurate within these massive data sets. And I just mentioned, the three data sets with Lambda and the 3rd and 4th generation of GPT. There are tons of other data sets that are out there that large language models pull from. Okay, and all of them are incredibly imperfect. And so these are conversations that we have to have on a global scale about how this is going to impact our lives moving forward. And as I was reading, this chapter, I found myself thinking there are lots of questions that Matt doesn't fully answer. He brings up lots of questions and explains them to an extent and kind of digs into those questions a little bit further. But he doesn't have, complete full answers to these either. That's something that we've continued to bring up from the very beginning. There's just a lot that we don't have answers for, and that we can't get answers for just yet. So the next question that brings up is, how economical is it? And this isn't one that's in the chapter, but it's something that I thought of as I was reading how many billions and trillions of parameters are included in these data sets. How much power does it take to generate and create these data sets? So just to give you some perspective here, I did a little research this morning on the amount of power and the environmental impact these things have on our world. Okay, so for scale, 1 megawatt of electricity can power a home for a little over a month. Okay, 1.2 months if we're being exact. All right. So in the research that I found, the 3rd generation of GPT took 1,287 megawatt hours to train, just to train. That's not to keep it up and running, right? So you think that's enough power to keep a home running, let me back up. That's enough power to keep about 1,300 homes running for over a month. And this is just one AI. 1,300 homes powered for 1 month. All right. And so let's flip that over to carbon emissions. Okay. The carbon footprint that these have on the planet too. And so I was looking into this, and I found some conflicting evidence, and I'm not really sure which one. Like, I didn't read the entire research paper on each of these, but one researcher or one group of researchers said that a large language model could potentially emit 500 tons of CO2 emissions. Now, on the flip side of that, there's a different group of researchers that are on the complete other end of the extreme, 620,000 tons. So those are vastly different, I realize. That equates 620,000 tons of carbon emissions is about as much carbon as 5 cars driven over the course of a lifetime. Okay? So I say all of this. There are lots of implications, not only for jobs and for careers and for education and everything else, but there are also environmental implications too. So while that is the case, could AI have positive effects? Could there be some offsets? While it does take so much electricity, so much energy to make these things run, does what it does offset the energy that it uses to create and run these things? So just something to think on there and chew on. So then the next thought here, what data does it collect? And how does it collect data? As we're using these AIs, whether it be Bard or ChatGPT or any of these others, what kind of data is it collecting? Is it collecting information that is personally identifiable, whether it's blatantly stated in their privacy policy or not? If we are using it as educators, if we add in a student's name, is it going to collect that and use it later on? What information is it taking and how is it going to use it? Jason saying over here, he read a fascinating article that proposed everyone to be paid for the data they're using now that has essentially come from us. That's very interesting. The information that we're putting into ChatGPT or other AIs, that's those are our prompts, those are our questions. Could it, because the ones that require us to sign in, those are tied to us. If those are being used to advance AIs, they're tied to us. Could we be paid for them? It's definitely something to consider. Then we'd have to pay for what we use, so it'll equal out. That's what Crystal's saying. Yeah. And so next, here's a big one. Is it equitable? On a global scale, is it equitable? But specifically in the world of education, is it equitable? So what about those kids who are out in rural areas who have limited access to internet at home? Schools are fortunate enough to have good quality internet, but when kids are at home, even if they're not allowed to use AI at school, depending on what it is, which AI it is, they do have access to it at home, potentially. So those students who don't have internet access at home are at a significant disadvantage of using artificial intelligence, of understanding it in a greater way. And additionally, the rich are getting richer. That's a quote I read as I was looking into this further. The rich are getting richer, not necessarily in a monetary sense, but the people who know how to engineer good quality prompts are going to be able to make better use of artificial intelligence than students who just know how to generate and put in a very basic question. So the students who have a better understanding of manipulating and working through how to get the best prompt or the best response from an AI generator are going to be at a significant advantage than students who don't. And the same thing too, the most advanced artificial intelligence engines are set up behind a paywall. You can't get the most advanced AI without paying. And so who's going to benefit the most there? The people who are able to pay for those. But on the other side of that, it could level out the playing field too. So our students who have communication issues, who have disabilities, a disability or a block in social skills, right? Artificial intelligence, chat bots can level that out, enhance their social mobility, and it supports self-confidence too. If you've got a student who is working through trying to get some ideas, get some really creative things out of an AI that can help them, spark something new and give them some self-confidence as well. So that brings us to this question: whose voice is it? And there are varying levels here too, varying levels of what could be considered voice. And that really, really kind of lends itself to our discussion here in just a minute about plagiarism and cheating. At what point are we considering artificial intelligence chatbots to be our voice? What point are we saying, no, they're not our voice? It's not ours at all. We may have, asked a decent question, but to what extent can we call it our voice? Because our voice is part of us and it's who we are as humans. And if we're not using our voice within what we write or what an AI generates, then is it really considered our voice? And then lastly, who is this going to impact? Who will it impact? So just some general thoughts here before we jump into our discussion. Was there anything that stood out, especially from this chapter, out of all of those talking points within chapter 6? Is there anything that stood out to you and really hit home?
I think that the point of it being not always accurate is one of the most problematic, because if we want to use AI to help us produce work quicker, or maybe that starting point, we will always have to go back and do like some fact checking.
Yeah, just as we would want our students to do with any research that they do on any given topic. We want them to fact check, validate the information that they find. If it's not reputable, it's not going to be found in more than 2 or 3 places. You want to find information that you can find widespread that is accurate and true. So that is definitely not going away. Absolutely. What else?
And Maria, just to piggyback off of what you were just saying, I think that this just brings to the forefront the importance of digital literacy and the fact that this is such a widespread tool that's being used. Like, this is the perfect time for our educational scene to really jump on board with digital literacy. Has to become a part of every instructional conversation when we're dealing with searching for information, because just like the AI is going to have inaccuracies, so does the World Wide Web. I mean, it's all over the place. And so just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that we've really got to put that a bigger importance on digital literacy.
Right. And while it's listed as like, kind of a negative part of it, it might end up being like a positive part, especially if we're trying to teach our kids, how do you fact check? What facts do we need to fact check? So then we can pull something from an AI written piece of work and say, question each part. Is this statement true? How do we know it's true? Well, where do we go to find out if it's true?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else?
Hey, Matt, I've got a comment. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay, so I have an upcoming 6th grader that has already brought this question to me about, why do I have to write this, that, and the other? Why do I have to solve these math problems when AI, I mean, he didn't use that term, but he was spot on. Why do I have to do this when the computer will do it for me? And this is a child with social, emotional disabilities, high functioning autism, very brilliant, but has a lot of issues with, socialization. He is way ahead of his peers intellectually, and I think he's coming from a place where his intelligence is above the others. So one of the challenges his teachers in the past have had is getting him to produce work on his own. Not that he can go ahead and do it, but he knows that a computer can do it. So I had to have this discussion with him about, well, what happens if, electricity is off and, we don't have those resources. So anyway, I just want to make that comment and just to see if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and something that I feel that students are going to start bringing up if they haven't already. Why should I have to do this if AI can do it for me, or if a computer can do it for me? And I think part of it goes back to what Maria was saying about inaccuracies. If I saw something several weeks ago, somebody argued with a chatbot as to why 2 + 2 didn't equal 4. And the responses that it gave were just completely ludicrous. So despite having the means and the capability of solving math problems or writing a paper, they're not always going to be accurate. And two, like we mentioned just a minute ago, the human element is removed from that. So while we have these tools and these resources available to us, we want to teach our students that what they do matters. And while it may not seem completely evident why they have to learn the quadratic formula in 6th or 7th grade, the things that they learn, the things that they do matter beyond just putting it in a chat bot. And it's going to matter when they enter in the workforce. So that's definitely going to be a challenge for our students, getting them to be okay with using AI in a creative way, not using it to do everything for them, and to be okay with using it to supplement and to aid. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to that?
This is Patrice. I was just going to add, when you mentioned the part about argument and arguing with AI about why, that was one of the things that I saw just coming from a science teacher's standpoint, where like student incorporating it where they actually do argue the opposite idea, and they've got to be able to look at the AI's argument to say, okay, that is absolutely crazy. That doesn't work. This doesn't go with what we've covered or what I've experienced in investigations in the science classroom to support that. And that's why their argument is incorrect. So that was one of the things that I thought was really, it shifted my mind when I was reading about that. I was like, okay, I can see it that way, because I will just be honest, I usually am embracing all technology, and AI is like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. So does Joni.
Well, yeah. And I think it's absolutely great that you feel that way, because as educators, we have to really be reflective, and we have to really decide, we lead that learning in the classroom. So you've got to decide like what is going to be the most effective way to utilize this. And we've got to teach our kids the ways it's not going to, enhance our learning. And so, I mean, I think it's good that you stand at a spot where you're kind of like, okay, I'm not jumping on this bandwagon too quick. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that shows wisdom, and we've got to really, really think about how we're going to present this. So I think that you're in a great spot right now.
All right. Thank y'all for your input and your feedback and contributions there. So now we're going to jump into the breakouts.
Let me unmute. There we go. All right, guys. So we're really excited about this portion of the conversation. We have heard many times at several conferences that we've gone to, we've actually heard Matt Miller speak about this particular chapter that we're about to jump into. And I think that it generates some really meaningful conversation, but also really gets us thinking about the core of using this in the classroom. Like, when is it considered cheating? When is it plagiarism? I just think it's a conversation we need to have. So a quote we pulled from the book: to prepare students for the future, they need to learn how to integrate AI into their work ethically and responsibly while using their humanity as an advantage. And Matt Miller speaks a lot about this humanity, how that's still what we have, and we have to foster that, and we have to use that in the best ways possible. And so because AI is not going anywhere, now we need to really hit home on, okay, how are we going to use this ethically and responsibly in our work? And so this quote just kind of sets the stage for what we're about to talk about in breakout rooms. And that is going to be the chart that Matt presents in his book. And that's where it's time to rethink plagiarism and cheating. So if you want to turn to page, I'll be honest, let's see, I'm not exactly sure. It's page 81. 81. All right. So page 81 in your book, because once we break you out into the rooms, unfortunately, this image will go away. It will not be in your breakout room. So I just want you guys to think about this visual, but also the 3 questions. Which of these would you consider cheating? Which of these is relevant to our students' future? And think about all we've talked about in the last couple of sessions. And then which of these would you use in your work as an adult? And I think this is where we have a little bit of conviction. Like, okay, so I want you to think about how you've used AI in your work and whatever it may be. We as a team have used AI for many things. So I want you to think, like, what am I using it and acceptable? Like, what do I feel like is acceptable as an adult? And is that lining up with how I feel about my students using it? And so I just think that's an important thing to think about too. So we're going to break you into these rooms for 10 minutes. We're going to give you guys a whole 10-minute block to really dig into this. And we want you to be transparent. How do you really feel? That's the best way to approach this, is to really get down to how do you truly feel and be honest with that. So we'll break out for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back as a whole group to kind of talk about some highlights from your breakouts. All right, so Matt's going to get those breakouts started, and then you can join.